Good afternoon. Welcome to Genomics Gupshup, episode number 57. Genomics Gupshup is an initiative by MapmyGenome to create a community around genomics. And we do that by calling all experts in the allied areas of medicine, nutrition, and many other areas close to it. Now, Genomics Gupshup is also available in any of your podcasts. Just search for Genomics Gupshup on Apple, Google, or YouTube. Today we are deeply privileged. We have with us one of the foremost experts in the field of medical genetics, Dr. Shagun Aggarwal. Welcome to Genomics Gupshup. Dr. Shagun Aggarwal is the head of the Department of Medical Genetics at NIMS, Hyderabad, and her pioneering work in prenatal diagnostics, rare genetic disorders, and public health genetics has transformed countless lives. Get ready for an enlightening journey into the stories written in our genes and a true leader in the field. Welcome, and I hope that with your experience in some of the best well-known institutions like SGP, GIMS, ILDB and CDFD, I think you're definitely one of the most well-known experts in the field, so we are truly privileged and honored to have you here. So welcome, and I'm so glad that you are here. I know that there is a lot in your resume, and I'm not reading out everything, but we want to hear that in the form of our discussion today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's indeed my pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation ahead.
So I think I forgot to add that I think there are more than 75 publications and many other studies that you have led. So I think it's not a small effort, but you also have something that we want to discuss, which is about a very novel discovery that your team did as well. So before we get to all of that, and I know you are doing a lot of promotion of prenatal screening in consanguineous marriages in India and other things, but want to start off first with, is there one specific thing, like when you think about all the great things that you have done, is there one aspect of research genomics that you're particularly excited about?
So, I mean, of course, was thanks for all that great introduction. I hope I'm deserving of it.
Of course you are.
So, I would say that, as a student of genetics, when I entered into this field, there was a lot of things, of course, which was very different from the conventional learnings of medicine and from my background of OBG, from where I came, and then the way of approaching patients, approaching diagnosis, going about in a completely different way of investigating something. I mean, it was a completely different world, I would say. And then those were the times when the Human Genome Project had just finished, and then we had all this buzz about how it's going to change medicine, how new cures are going to come, and then how new diagnoses, new things are going to get discovered, and then there was a lull in between, right? And that was, I would say, that was the incubation period, and now we are seeing that is really happening. So we are seeing the boom which is happening in research. We are practically having new diseases getting reported every maybe twice a week or something, and we are having all these new personalized therapies which are coming in, helping so many patients, not just rare disease but even moving on to the common disease sphere also. So I think all of this, the journey itself, it's the learning phase, and then the continuous, kind of the new things which just keep surprising you every day, which just keeps you, excited and makes you, kind of get up and rush to work every single day.
That's great. So I think you've probably, I guess through your journey you've covered rare diseases, a lot of common diseases and other things as well. So I know that I wanted to start with that, but we want to go into details of, you started off being a OBGYN, which is more, I would say, a more traditional kind of a field. First of all, who inspired you was being a doctor in your genes, or is it something, was that something that you, were just inspired by something else?
Yeah, okay. So I come from a family of educators, so both from my dad's and my mother's side. So actually I won't say that, it was in my genes or it was my childhood dream to be a doctor as such. So I was more of a person who was really kind of, driven by the thirst for knowledge. And I still remember, my summer vacations that, other kids would be out playing and I would be doing some or the other silly experiments like watching some birds feed or doing some, chromatographic experiments on some flowers and some vegetables. So it was a very different kind of a childhood, and I would say my father was my inspiration in the sense he really used to push me because he saw probably that spark in me that, I have this hunger for knowledge, hunger for, exploring more all the time. So he always used to kind of facilitate me. So it was not that I aimed to be a doctor, but then eventually because I was so much, kind of focused on the science, and then in fact I did end up clearing the IIT entrance and the MBBS entrance at the same time.
So we missed you in IIT.
Yeah. So I did get into IIT Delhi. And then, my father said, okay, we need to, take a call. And then we went around to meeting a lot of his friends, colleagues, some of them from medical background, some of them engineers. And, I kind of, they all, kind of, I would say counseled me in a way or whatever. So it was a collective wisdom, which finally, I came to a point when I had to think that why do I want to do? Why do I want to be a doctor or an engineer? And at the end of the day, it was, a decision made mostly on the fact that what would make a bigger impact on the society or the world as a whole. So that's what finally, made me to, to leave the IIT dream and enter into the medical stream. So I guess that's how I ended up becoming a doctor. And then eventually, of course, I did take up OBG. But then, it was always that the researcher inside me, who was always wanting, more, not happy with the status quo or, the usual conventional.
Just delivering babies.
Yeah. So I think that's what brought me into genetics eventually.
That's fascinating. So I realized that I had a couple of classmates also who joined IIT with us.
Okay.
And then the moment she got into one of them, she became a doctor, and she is now like. So there were people like that. I haven't seen the other way around where they gave up medical and joined IIT. So I guess there is some physical medicine.
So I think medicine is a never-ending love. Once you get into it, there is so much every day to learn, to experience that.
So you grew up in which part of?
So I'm from Delhi, basically. So all my education, including MBBS and MD, was in Delhi. And then after that, I moved to Lucknow for the super specialization in genetics. In fact, now that I recollect that, the fascination with genetics dates back to, in fact, I think the MBBS days, although that time I was probably not conscious of that. So I still remember there was this biochemistry paper in the first prof, I think, or the first prof, and there was a question on transcription and translation, and there were 10 questions in that paper to be covered in 3 hours. And I was so engrossed in answering that one question that I spent 1 hour on that. So my answer booklet would be like, filled with that whole one question's answer, and then the rest of it I had to somehow hurry up to.
The professor who graded you must be wondering, like, how come this person knows so much about.
I don't know. So that time it was not conscious, but I guess, it's somewhere it was there that I was always fascinated by genetics.
So then after Lucknow, then how did you come to Hyderabad?
Okay, so there was a brief stint in between my MD and my super specialization when actually I was in Hyderabad. So that time my daughter was small, so I was doing a little more easy job. So from Delhi, when I moved to Hyderabad for that job, so I kind of found Hyderabad a very wonderful city. But that's a little long time back now. Hyderabad is also like any other bustling metro. But at that point of time, it was like a really quaint city with all the conveniences. I kind of fell in love with the city, and then when I did my super specialization, then there was an opening at Nizam, so I just grabbed it. I mean, I
I
wanted
think
to come back to the city.
And Nizam's is the main place where everybody comes for
Yes,
all the
that's so true.
genetics.
That's true.
So I'm sure you've gone through many different cases and all of that, and I'm sure none of them, everyone is as important as the other. But I think if it is something that there was any particular case that you felt that fundamentally changed how you view genetics or genomics or the power of it, can you maybe tell us a little bit about that?
So again, as you said rightly, I mean practically every case teaches you something. Every patient is really different. So there are so many, and then it's not just the scientific element, you know, it's the human element which is again very different for everybody. So I particularly remember, you know, this very sweet couple who actually had lost a kid, and that kid was suffering with a genetic disorder, and they struggled with managing that kid for a long 9 years. And they didn't plan a baby in because they were, you know, I mean, obviously wanting to give the best to that kid. And unfortunately, that baby girl expired. And then they had come because they wanted to plan another pregnancy. And then at that point of time, they were married consanguineously, as is true for many of the couples who come to a genetics OP at our institute. So in fact, when I had offered them an expanded carrier screening, and unfortunately on that, both of them turned out to be carriers for not just that one disease, but 3 more diseases. So now, like, you know, the risk of, you know, having a child for one or the other diseases was really high. So then I kind of, you know, discussed with them that, you know, what are their options going ahead, and even discussed the options of, you know, going for PGT or adoption as another option. And adoption is usually something, you know, in India we offer as a kind of very softly at the end of the whole counseling, because our society as a whole, you know, is not that ready many times. But then I was really surprised by the husband's response. He just very plainly within 2 minutes told me, you know, my wife has already gone through so much over the 9 years. I don't want to put her through IVF. I don't want her to go through the trauma of, you know, going through all these steps, taking all those medications. We'll go for adoption. And it just took them 2 minutes to make that call, and I was so surprised. And I mean, you know, from as doctors, we think about the power of science all the time, and you know, we are feeling sometimes, okay, I'm giving them the risk, I'm giving them solutions, and we are thinking like that, right? But then they surprise us very often with how that, you know, it's the small things, the bigger things rather, you know, which are more important, and that's how people take so many decisions, so many tricky decisions in life. That's when I think it kind of humbles you, what I would say.
When we look at all the genes, genetics, the risk and all that.
Yeah.
So, do you think that there is a large percentage of people who have taken adoption as one of the reasons, or do you still think that is very less?
I think it's very less. So that's why this couple was kind of a pleasant surprise.
So, do you think that there are any other cases where you look at like the overall like Indian population that is different from any of the other cases that you might have studied for, you know, I'm sure when you're doing that you'll come across newer things, but have you found something interesting about the Indian population? I mean, other than the fact that we have more consanguineous couples in
So again, consanguinity is again a big factor, especially in this part of India, I mean Telangana, Andhra and the other southern states. But besides consanguinity, again, you know, we also have this very interesting, our social structure where there is a lot of inbreeding. We know that most of Indians marry, within caste and other, you know, we have these smaller groups or linguistic groups or other groups. So there is, besides consanguinity, there is still a lot of other factors, especially related to this inbreeding aspect, which does influence, you know, what kind of genetic disorders we see compared to what is seen in the West. So, like if we see our own experience at NIMS, so be it any kind of cohorts, let's say intellectual disability cohorts or even the fetal cohorts, malformation cohorts, so all across all kinds of cohorts, if we see the Western population, they have more of autosomal dominant X-linked disorders. We have predominantly autosomal recessive disorders.
which could have been prevented.
Yeah, which is, yeah, so which comes to, gets us to the next point, that we can actually do a lot of preventive strategy there, which is, unique to us, and we just need to work in that direction, because that's what we are seeing. I mean, 80% of our diagnosis, genetic diagnosis, is all autosomal recessive conditions. So that's something, and that's preventable, so to a large extent.
I know that when we get cases also, most of the time it is after they've already had a baby with a problem. And I'm sure you probably see that
Yes,
as well.
that's so true. Yes.
So how can we increase that awareness in parents before they, at least can they come for counseling before they plan a baby? I think that messaging is still,
Has to. Yeah, so I think we still need to create a lot of more awareness for everybody, but I do see a huge difference over the last 12, 13 years, whereby now we do have couples coming to our clinic at MINS, and they do come before marriage. So there are couples who are walking in the premarital period. Most of the time they come because they are planning to get married in consanguinity, or sometimes if they have a family history. So, I mean, of course the proportion is not that much as we would want it to be, but it's there. At least that awareness has come. Nobody is referring them. They have, they've come on, they've probably read somewhere, they are aware, and they are coming, and then they are wanting to get tested. And that really goes a long way, kind of a primary prevention. Because otherwise, most of the time, what we are doing is, when there is already a baby, and then we are offering them a secondary prevention kind of strategy. So, whereby, it's a lot of trauma also, leaving the biology and the other things aside. I mean, for families to go through, all the genetic testing, to go through prenatal testing, or even IVF PGTs for that matter, all that has so much of psychological connotations to it, which, we need to we can prevent it to a large extent by...
If we can maybe normalize that whole testing before, I think that might make it.
Yeah.
So now there are some aspects of like finding out newborn also. At that level also, I think we are not.
Yes.
There is some
also,
efforts, but...
Yeah, that's true. So I mean, there is a lot of effort, I think, from the government also now. So especially now the national policy for rare diseases is there. As of now, the policy is focusing more on treatment, but there is a strong component of prevention also there, which is also, getting implemented side by side. And I hope, that's something where the focus will shift a few years down the lane, because that's what's going to make the impact in, the longer
term.
Yeah.
I think slowly we start seeing that, right? Even in the US now, we are seeing a slight shift towards prevention. So I think, slowly when you start looking at it as an overall cost to the society, overall cost to the country, I think there is a lot
that's a logical, and that's a logical next step which everybody should be, I think, working for.
So I think when they start thinking about it as being a rare disease, people think it will not happen to them, right? And it's only when it happens to them they realize that rare is not so rare.
Not so rare, right? And unfortunately, I think there's also some stigma still there. So people, somebody may be having a rare disease, but they don't want to accept, or they don't want to tell to even their close family members. So that stigma aspect also keeps it kind of hidden from the statistics or the overall perception as such.
I think that is always the case. So you've always done, like we were talking about, you have more than 75 publications, but you also were author of Finding a New Specific Gene, right? So how did that happen? Was that something that was a study plan? Did that come? How did that come about?
Again, it was not really a study plan. So again, it was serendipitous for that matter. So it was, as I'm a lot into the prenatal genetics, fetal genetics component. So a part of that is doing fetal autopsies. So there was this family who had been losing their babies, one newborn baby and then a pregnancy, to a kind of an unusual presentation whereby the baby's lungs would get filled up with fluid. and nobody was able to kind of pinpoint what's going on there. So one of these other fetus had been brought for an autopsy or a postmortem. So that's what we advise actually for whenever there is a pregnancy which gets lost without any known reason, or a pregnancy terminated because there is some anomaly on scan. So we always tell that we need to go for an autopsy so that we can study the baby in detail and try to find out what's going on. Yeah, what's gone wrong there. So in fact, this particular case, that fetus had a very unusual finding. I mean, we did the postmortem, and that was something which I had never seen before. So it had all these unusual bubbles on its lungs, on its intestines, and all the the internal visceral membranes we call it. And it was kind of very surprising. At first, I was thinking maybe it's some kind of an emphysema or some lung issue. And for a long time, I was focusing in that direction, trying to find a mutation fitting with that theory in my head. But then there was nothing something pointing towards an emphysema or a lung disease there. So when further, it was like more like just going through those variants and just sitting with that case for days on and going through those list of variants, and suddenly I saw this gene pop up. That's the SERPINA11 gene, and how it popped up is it is basically belonging to the SERPINA1 gene family, and SERPINA1 does cause emphysema. So somewhere it just kind of
the phenotype
clicked, little tangential, but then it kind of clicked that okay, probably this is it. And then it was in fact a journey of 7 years trying to study that gene, because it was really an obscure gene. Some of the papers even said it's a pseudo gene and it's not doing anything in the body. But then we went in and we did some work with cell lines, some mouse models, some human fetal tissues, a lot of things. And then over a period of 7 years, again there were a lot of failed experiments in this duration, but then there were a lot of magical moments when things just click. And then that's how we kind of finally were able to kind of say that yes, this is a new Mendelian gene, a new disease. And then we got published in the Clinical Genetics, came on the cover of the journal. Yeah, thank you so much. And it was all a team effort, of course, but yeah, it was a wonderful journey.
With CDFD.
So it was in collaboration with CDFD, with team of Dr. Ashwin and Dr. Rajna Bhandari. So we worked together on this.
So I think people don't realize how much effort it takes to find that one new gene or a new discovery. I think 7 years, and that too because you are already trained and you could kind of get that sense from the from them. So I think if we don't start that process of discovery, I think we'll never find it. We'll not find it. And while it was a serendipitous effort when you looked at a baby and you figure it out, I think that's where if you can put together more people who are from the medical field and research, I think then we will see a lot more.
So we need to have, I think, this, kind of genre of clinician scientists, which is something which is very well established in the developed countries, but still in nascent.
Not in India yet. But I think it's important. I'm glad that at least it has happened, and I'm sure. Did you see any more cases of that afterwards, or?
So no, not this particular mutation. Yeah. But it's there. I think the team from CMC Vellore also found it later on in one of their cases, mutation in the same gene. So I'm sure it's there must be many more cases. Probably they're not just coming to attention and waiting to be discovered
by someone. Yeah. This was a serendipitous one, but can you tell us a little bit more about any of the other studies that you did, and why did you what was your motivation in creating a study? Was it always a patient, or was it something that you had in your mind, that some idea that maybe got you to get into these studies or these papers that you published?
So again, I think my probably the driving force could be that one thing, I come from the OBG background. And when I was doing my OBG residency, that time we hardly had any knowledge of genetics. And then when I came into genetics, it was almost like your eyes get open, and then you realize that there are so many things which you miss. And I distinctly remember when I was doing my residency in OBG, there was one staff nurse, and she kept on having these babies who were all labeled as CMV infection. So I mean it was, but as a this thing we know that usually a CMV infection doesn't happen again and again in pregnancies. Most of the time, once a baby gets a CMV infection, it's a cytomegalovirus. So CMV is cytomegalovirus. So if the mom gets infected with cytomegalovirus in pregnancy, the virus can go on to the baby and damage the baby's brain, liver, and other organs. So, but that happens just once, because once any adult, so for that matter a pregnant lady, gets a CMV infection, the next pregnancy she'll be immune, so she's not going to get it. So, but this staff nurse kept on having, 3 kids who all were labeled as having this cytomegalovirus infection, which at that point of time I, I didn't know what's happening. But that's what was the diagnostic label. So, but now I know that there's a genetic entity called as pseudotot syndrome. So, whereby the clinical picture mimics a cytomegalovirus infection, and that is an autosomal recessive disorder. So that keeps happening again and again. So like that, there are so many other things which, in hindsight, now as a geneticist, I see that had I known this when I was doing my OBG practice, then probably I could have helped those patients better. So, I mean, that's the niche, or that's the lacunae which somehow I want to fill through my work, whereby the obstetricians, the colleagues who are working with those pregnant women, or parents who are planning pregnancies, and or patients who are losing pregnancies, having bad obstetric outcomes and all. So very often many of these would actually be genetic conditions, and it's just that nobody has focused that much on that field of that obstetric or fetal or reproductive genomics, to be able to kind of pinpoint what's happening, and then take it to the next level whereby we are able to prevent this. So I think my driving force and most of my research work also, if you see, has focused more on this the fetal and the reproductive genomics aspects, where I'm just trying to kind of find out how do genetic disorders affect a developing embryo or a developing fetus, and what kind of abnormalities are causing these pregnancy or reproductive mishaps, and how we can tackle them. So I guess that's the the lacunae which I see, which I myself, I would say I had it when I was a resident, which I want to make sure that
So you're thinking of writing a book or something?
Yeah, I have to. One of these days, I do have some plans to maybe write a book on fetal autopsies. That's something which I kind of want to focus on. But let's see how it goes.
Because it will be very helpful, I think, especially for a lot of people where if they've seen cases like this but they don't know.
Yes.
So if it can somehow
be compiled.
Compiled, I think it might really be very helpful, even for maybe, while it can be written for doctors, I think even sometimes patients are looking for answers. And when they are searching, if they find something, maybe they will come and see a geneticist if they haven't yet already. So
thanks for the idea.
Hopefully you'll see something. The other thing, and I know that this happens a lot even when our genetic counseling team is looking at some of the cases, sometimes you hit upon some ethical challenges in all of this, especially because you look at a lot of cases that probably come to you before pregnancy, before birth and so on. So maybe if you can tell us an example of, how some ethical challenge is, that comes in the mind of a medical geneticist like yourself, somebody who's a doctor, then how do you deal with these issues?
So I think, of course there are some classical ethical challenges which, even the Western, world faces. But in India, I feel there are some challenges which arise, especially unique to our, socio-cultural systems. So one of them is, the very much, in-depth involvement of, parents in an extended family members in a couple's lives. And they're even, to the...
So they all come to your
often, the patients, the couple are accompanied by, family members from both sides. But that's okay, of course. I mean, that is because, even I guess as couples, young couples also are looking forward to, parental guidance and all. But sometimes, it becomes a little, like there was this particular family where there was this gentleman and his wife actually had a spinocerebellar ataxia, which is an autosomal dominant condition. So, there would be a risk to his kids also. So then he had two daughters, and then those daughters, they were tested. So they were tested as adults, because we never test for these kind of conditions unless an individual is, an adult, because they are all adult onset conditions. And there's nothing much we offer in terms of treatment. It is primarily for the purpose of knowing that whether you have that condition or not, and also for preventing it from going on to the next generation. So actually his daughters had been tested, and one of them was having the mutation from the mom and the other one did not. And then when this girl who actually got married, the first one who had the mutation, so then they were looking forward, of course, to planning a baby. So then that girl, along with her husband, had come to our OPD. So, and she was actually carrying a report from our own lab. And that report was showing that she did not have the mutation. Okay. So then, we went back into the records because he had kind of contacted through somebody saying that I want prenatal testing for my daughter. And I'm sending her and, the husband. And they came in, but the report is normal. And then we were wondering that, why do we even need to do a prenatal testing if she's not even carrying the mutation? Then we kind of went back to our lab records, and then we saw that actually this girl's report showed that she had a mutation, and that father, trying to be protective, had, kind of made a, a duplicate or a fake report, and, got it printed on a color, in our letterhead. Somehow he managed all that, just to make sure that, the girl doesn't know that she's going to be affected, or her husband doesn't come to know that, So that was something which was, you had to be very kind of gentle and still persuasive that there's no way that, we cannot disclose it. She's an adult. She needs to take decisions on her own, and of course her husband also needs to be kind of involved in that decision because it's their kid, So, but these kind of situations I think are unique to our country.
Yeah, no one would have done, I wouldn't have thought that it was, when you were telling this story, I was thinking, what could have happened with this, like, switched on or like something happened like that. But I didn't think of this someone making a fake report.
Yeah, but all the good intention of, protecting his daughter, basically, right? But that's something which is, sometimes is, similarly, so many times it happens that parents want to take decision for their adult children, or don't want some bad news to be, delivered to them. And so those kind of situations we do come across practically on a daily basis. But then most of the time it's more about, communication. So many of these kind of challenges can be handled just by having an open communication with families, sometimes individually also, and then as a group also. So it's a matter of, I think, just counseling skills, patience, spending time.
I think some of these can take a lot of your time, and also, I guess, many times I ask, people who do,
Counseling.
that do you take their burden also, right? Because many times when you're talking to, and you're always talking to people who have some problems,
yes,
right?
who are in distress.
So how do you deal with those challenges, right? Those are all like heavy psychological, it's their burden, but I'm sure that it gets passed on when you are talking to them as well.
That's true, but I think, you can always, when you look at the bigger picture, that you are making a difference. So this is part and parcel of it, right? Any career path where you are involved in care, some kind of a caregiving, you would be, having these challenges.
So
you would be carrying some.
How do you get the stress away from?
So I do paint. But then, not much of time now, but still, that's my kind of, stress buster, painting and traveling.
So nowadays, you were mentioning that nowadays we're seeing a lot of new discoveries, new things, but there's also a lot of gene therapy and others that are coming up. Uh, what are your thoughts in terms of how gene therapy is going to transform, what we are seeing today? Because today a lot of them, like you were mentioning also, that in some cases we don't have a solution for those patients. Right? Do you think this is going to do anything major, and will it be also cost effective?
Yeah.
That's the other.
So I
other
think that's the
challenge.
main thing. So technically, I guess, I mean, we now have so many examples and we have gene therapies which have come into clinic, right? So I don't think there is a challenge probably at the technical level. It's working, and just now we've had a publication this week about the CRISPR therapy for a kid with metabolic disease. So I mean, there are so many examples, I think, now whereby probably technically it's no longer something which is not feasible, but the cost is the main thing which is going to make it still, I mean, it is still prohibitive for our patients at least. But I'm sure, I mean, there are going to be, measures because there are researchers working in India, and I think there is a push from the government also to kind of collaborate with industry to, do indigenous manufacture and indigenous technologies, whereby hopefully we will have our own, gene therapies, made in India gene therapies.
Yeah, I think eventually it will happen, right? Like even if you think about sequencing, it cost billions of dollars,
Yes.
and today I think
Very
everybody
true.
can.
And in fact, it's the cheapest in India in today's
Yes,
date. I don't think anywhere across the world we have these cost, available for sequencing as we have in India. So I'm sure we are going to get there one day, but probably, it will take a while.
So I know we went through a lot of serious discussion on genes and research and all. I want to go a little bit into a little bit more fun aspects. So, if your favorite gene could talk, what would it say? You have to think about your favorite gene.
I would say
Serpine
11,
yeah.
because I worked on it for so many years. So I mean probably because Serpine 11 works to kind of balance out the protease activities in the body. So that's what its function is. So probably if it was talking, it would say, I'm the genie who can make or break you.
Yes. So, genomic superpower that you wish you had.
Okay. So probably, I mean nowadays we have all these, anti-aging, whatever tech revolutions going on. Everybody is on that train. So probably if I had the genomic superpower, I would, restore the telomeres.
So telomeres, I think for people who don't understand, I think maybe you can explain that would be a good thing.
Yeah. So one of the things, with aging, what has been observed that it's the, our chromosomes, at the ends of the chromosomes, we have these segments which are called as telomeres. And as a cell or a person ages, these telomeres keep on getting smaller and smaller. So they say that, it's a telomere length which reflects your biological age. So I mean, short of all these plasma exchanges and the diets, which is too difficult for anybody to manage. So I would want for the superpower, that the my telomeres remain normal length always.
And hopefully the methylation part also is
taken care of.
So your spirit animal in the genome, like a hardworking exon, a rebellious intron, like that. I think. Do you have any such?
So probably I would be the chromatin. I mean the chromatin, which is resilient. It kind of maintains the DNA, but it's also very flexible. So it can fit into the tiny cells. So that's what I am. I think adaptable and resilient.
It's a great talk. Guilty pleasure of geneticist. Like, what is your guilty pleasure?
So as a geneticist, you get to be always Sherlock Holmes, so that's my guilty pleasure to find that criminal mutation.
You spent 7 years on that.
So that's it. To find that criminal, who's causing all that.
So when you don't find it, what do you keep thinking about it?
Of course. because I get sometimes these Excel sheets in my dreams also.
So do you often dream of genes or?
Not only of
Sometimes,
genes,
yeah.
sometimes
Or
of
some
patients or some case or
We had one person in our office, and she remembered RSIDs.
Oh
and,
wow.
and that's a bit much.
Yeah.
I think at least I know some gene names, but I don't think I can remember the RSIDs of. So, can you tell any Bollywood movie that had any genetic trait or a genetic concept or a genetic disease? I think there are a few.
Yeah. I think Pa, I felt was the one with Amitabh Bachchan. So
Yeah,
that was a very good representation, not only of the disease, but also of how a family gets affected by a person in the family when there's a genetic disease. It was a wonderful movie.
Yes. So I don't know if you have any pets, but if you had one, what would you name? If you had to name after a mutation.
So I don't have a pet. So in fact, my daughter keeps, she's been pestering me for years now to get a pet, and especially a cat. So that if I do end up getting one, I think I would name it Chroma. And Chroma as in, that would be a short for chromothripsis, because chromothripsis is basically, the phenomena where the chromosomes just shatter and break into in very erratic ways. So that's what I am expecting would happen if a pet came into my house. So,
but it's also a nice name, right? Like it has multiple meanings.
Yeah,
so,
that's
so,
true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Okay. Your karaoke song about DNA. I don't know if there is one.
I'm pretty new to karaoke. I've just done it once.
Do you sing or?
Yeah, I mean, like the school choir singing. That's all. In the bathroom singing.
Which song do you hum the most?
Oh, okay. That's classified.
I'm trying to get you to see if I can get you to maybe hum a little couple of lines of.
Yeah, but I think given my love for genetics and genomics, probably something like that song Hum Bane Tum Bane Ek Duje Ke Liye. That would be my song for the day.
That's a nice, lovely song. You want to maybe sing a?
No, I think you pass.
Okay. One thing that you wish everybody knew about genetics.
Okay. I think genetics is the elephant in the room, literally. And it's something which both medical professionals as well as probably the laypersons also kind of tend to overlook. But it's very much there. So I think it's high time that everybody acknowledge that
that genetics.
What is genetics and how it impacts their life, their health, and how we can actually use that the technology, the power to better ourselves. So that's something which I wish was more known.
Absolutely. So do you think there is any common misconception or a myth about genes, like the one that you, for instance, like the certain one that you A11 or anything else? I mean, I guess certain A11 would be too specific, but anything that.
I think one of the things, myth or whatever, one of the common things which we encounter is, couples come in and then some of them are like, as we encounter a lot of consanguineous couple in our practice. So there is a myth in our population that, there is a treatment for consanguinity and, there is some injection available. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So by which, they can be cured of the consanguinity impacts and all. So that's,
It's a new one, I didn't know that.
No, that's pretty common. In fact, when we do carrier screening and we do find a mutation, so they end up asking, now, can you give us some treatment for this?
Yeah, because I think they feel that when they go to a doctor that
the next logical step is that there could be some
tablet
treatment available.
So if the Indian genome wrote a story of humanity, what kind of a book would that be like? Would it be some sort of a movie or this thing? What genre would it be? Would it be fiction?
Okay. I'm sure the Indian genome is like, going to be a drama. There is no other genre I can think of it.
It's a really good one.
I
it's true. It would be
Yeah,
a
I mean, we have centuries of, the diversity,
Correct.
the melting pot of so many cultures, so many languages, so many, wars, migrations, love stories in our genome, right? I mean, so it cannot be
It can't be
anything but a
anything else.
drama.
And you want to give it a name?
Oh my god. I'm not so sure about that. Yeah.
Ek duje ke liye order, something like that, since you were singing that song. So, anything that you would, I know that you've gone through many of these fun or interesting aha moments, but anything that you feel that personally that there was any insight that you would like to, like some aha moment that, I mean, of course, I'm sure that certain that was already one,
Yeah,
but anything else that you can think of?
I mean, not a particular moment, but I just think, that the whole journey of being a geneticist and seeing new things every day, dealing with new kind of patients, families every day, it's like, kind of I mean, I wouldn't say aha moment, but the revelation which I feel is, just as the science is always unraveling and there is always something which you haven't even thought of. So, it's the same for maybe, our life journeys and for, myself as a human being. I always feel that, there's always, I mean, there are plans which you make and then there are things which you think, but you're always surprised by life. There is always something which is beyond your imagination, beyond what you could even think with your mind. And that's I think, it's a journey of growth. You just have to be tuned to it and, that's all. So I guess it's not an aha moment, but it's like, kind of.
Many aha moments.
Yeah,
I can see
many aha
yeah,
moments over the years, yeah.
So you have a lot of students also, right, that work with you. So how do they, for you, is that something like every time when you are teaching them, how does that whole knowledge of, because every case is different, right? So when you are teaching all these people, when you are teaching your students, how can you transfer like so many years of knowledge in them, right? Like how do they learn? Is it a difficult thing, or they just have to learn by doing, learning their own?
It is difficult also because it's not like classroom teaching or teaching a theoretical course. So most of the time I would say most of the learning happens more by experience, by the bedside discussions which happen rather than through a classroom teaching. So as you said, it's not possible for anybody to give all their experiences to somebody. Some things just come with time, with age, and with your own perspectives, your own ways of learning. So there's no way that we can transfer everything. Same would hold true for me and my teachers. Because obviously they would have much more experience, and but I would have my own journey of learning.
And you have more science that has developed along the way.
That's also true. So in fact nowadays the students are also grappling with the fact that they have to learn what we learned, and then they have to learn this
Much more.
much more because it's just expanding at a huge pace.
But there is also now, like if you think about it, there is tools that you probably never had, right? Like earlier, some of even the informatics tools have developed quite a lot. Your AI has also developed a lot, right? So I think there are good things and bad things. I think there were things that you had to do by hand a lot earlier.
Yes.
Today a lot of that can be automated, but then you have to learn a lot more because so much more has come about. So
that's true. That's true. And then I think AI is again we need to again probably all domains of whatever life or all domains. It's something which is there to assist us. But we always need to remember that the human intelligence and its creativity is much beyond what any AI can achieve. So we have to kind of make sure that we incorporate it and we kind of learn from it and we learn how to use it. Rather than see it as a threat or kind of say that it's going to replace us. It's never going to replace us. Right? We are always one step ahead. It's learning from what we have learned.
Learning from
right?
us,
We can always learn more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we humans will always need that. And I think the more we accept that is a tool for us rather than a
Yes.
replacement of
Yeah,
us.
yeah. The more we'll be able to use it better, actually.
So I know that you have had a very long and very eventful journey in NIMS, but if you had to say one word to describe that journey, how would that be? What would that be? I think I'm giving you very difficult questions to answer.
I think, my journey at NIMS and in life is just, staying curious. That's
So
it.
curiosity is in your DNA.
Yeah.
That's our t-shirt. I have to get you one.
okay.
So, any particular story or anything that you feel that maybe any wishes that you have from the world of genomics or anywhere else? Like, is there something that you want to tell our viewers or anything? What you wish for?
Okay. I think, again, as I mentioned, for me, one of the biggest things is that, I kind of want that there should be kind of, more awareness of the field of, the field in the sense of how genetics impacts reproduction and, that obstetric and the reproductive aspect of it, because I feel that area is like really lagging behind. So that's my really, kind of my wish and my burning desire that, there should be more work in that field. And that's what would kind of, make an impact in the longer term, because that's where the the focus will shift from treatment, which is also of course important, but it will kind of shift to the more important aspect of prevention, because it's that particular critical period of the reproduction and planning a baby, and that component where we can actually make the impact in terms of utilizing genomics in such a way that we could prevent a lot of conditions. So that's where I hope that science moves and genomics moves towards that direction.
Absolutely, and I think you have been doing that a lot at
That's
NIMS,
right.
and I hope that you are able to convince a lot more people to be able to do
I
that.
hope so too, really.
We are waiting for your book to come out. I know that you didn't start writing it yet, but we are hoping that you'll get there. So thank you again for the great work that you do at NIMS. I think it is serving a very large population, even people who can't even afford to come. I think that's a very important thing. So for people who are listening and who think they need a consultation of any kind, I think if you are not aware, I think, and you are in Hyderabad or in nearby cities, I think the Nizam's Institute is where a lot of consultation happens. I think if you want to say anything in Hindi or in Telugu, I think about how they can come and meet you, I think that would be also
Okay, so my Telugu is not very good, but
it's the same as mine. Yeah.
సో అంటే ఎవరికైనా ఇట్లా ఫ్యామిలీలో జెనెటిక్ కండిషన్స్ వంశపరగతి కండిషన్స్ ఉన్నారా, లేకపోతే ఇది పిల్లలు పుట్టిన కష్టం అవుతుంది, ప్రెగ్నెన్సీస్లో ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ అవుతుంది, మీ అందరికీ ఇది జెనెటిక్స్ చెకప్స్ చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఉంది. సో దట్ ఇది మన నెక్స్ట్ బేబీ ప్లానింగ్లో హెల్తీ బేబీ పుట్టినకి ఛాన్సెస్ ఉంది. సో దాని నుంచి మీరు మన నిమ్స్ హాస్పిటల్లో మెడికల్ జెనెటిక్స్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్ ఉంది, స్పెషాలిటీ బ్లాక్లో. అక్కడ ఎప్పుడున్న మండే టు సాటర్డే వరకు ఎప్పుడున్న రండి, మన అందరూ మంది ఉన్నారా, మొత్తం టీం ఉన్నారా అక్కడ, మీకు అన్ని హెల్ప్ చేస్తారు.
Thank you. I think that was fantastic. You said your Telugu is not good. It was very good. So, thank you. Thanks again. And I'm so glad that you were able to come here.
Thank you
And
for
that too
having
in
me.
person.
It was a wonderful interaction.
Thank you.